Welcome back, everybody, to a new episode of Benchwarmers Sports Talk. Once again, it is Labi here alongside Jacob, and today we are warming the bench for the Stanley Cup Finals. We'll get into some NBA, NFL talk, and whatever else we decide to talk about as the episode goes on. But for now, our focus is going to be first and foremost on the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. The matchup is set. We have the Dallas Stars against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Jacob, welcome back to the podcast. How are you doing?
They got the 2 extra points. They just need to field goal time. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm keeping up with the Buffalo game. Okay, so the Stanley Cup Finals. Man, Dallas looks good. Oh, yeah. Man, they look really good.
Yeah, full disclosure, we do have Game 1 to go off of, so as much as this is a Stanley Cup preview, we also do have the experience of Game 1 to sort of judge. But, I mean, I'm going to just go out there and say it. I said that the winner of Dallas, Colorado would win the Stanley Cup. And I've been saying that Tampa Bay are consistent chokers, and I'm not going to forgive them for that title until they go on to win a cup. Just like Washington, I kept telling them they were chokers until they won the cup, and even then, they haven't really done anything since. Although, they won the cup, so they've done what Tampa Bay hasn't done yet. Tampa Bay back in the finals, obviously since 2015. As you can see, Jacob is holding his breath that the Miami Dolphins do not get this onside kick because he doesn't want to get eliminated from his survival pool.
Yeah, no, I don't want to lose this one.
He's got the Bills winning this one. But going back to the NHL, Jacob, you said Dallas looks strong. I mean, they did.
2 words, Yoel Kiviranta. Man, that guy came out of nowhere, and he has not stopped dominating since that Colorado series.
And I mean, Joe Hanley was the guy's name. First goal of the final.
Congrats to him.
I mean, the thing about this Dallas Stars team, and I would know because I have him in my fantasy league. Tyler Seguin has 8 points in the playoffs.
Yikes! That's not. For the guy that should be he should be the Kiviranta of the team.
Yeah, but and I mean, so this is clearly all 4 lines and Khudobin in net, which I don't think he's been talked about enough in these playoffs. We kind of just, talk about, the Stars have been really good. The goaltending that he's put in, and remember, Bishop is healthy. They're just playing Khudobin because he's the better goalie, and he's been showing
he's hot, man.
These playoffs.
Oh, man, he is fun to watch. He's a cool guy, too. Like, if you see him in the locker room, he's a good team player. He's very team-oriented, and he's just, it's good. He's just been playing fantastic. And it's weird because he's going to be a UFA after this season, and he's going to want to get paid big. And, if he wins, it might be like a Binnington, except he's been in the league a little longer than that. But, Bishop gets hurt, he comes in, and he lights out.
Yeah.
Like, Dallas looks like they could be a franchise. This could be a dynasty in the next 5 years if they stay like this.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they finally turned the corner. Miami failed the onside kick, so Buffalo's just going to kneel out that ball game.
Yes! Oh, my God.
And we'll get into Week 2 football talk later on in the episode, give you a full breakdown on most of the games. Of course, this is being recorded just as the 1 o'clock game window has closed. So we'll be able to talk about the NFL up to the end of the 1 o'clock games in Week 2. But yeah, I mean, this goes back to what we've been talking about over the last few episodes, which is the goalie market in the NHL this season.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be ridiculous because there are so many number 1 goalies, first of all, who are up in free agency. There are goalies who are restricted free agents whose teams might trade their rights away. And then, not just Matt Murray, you're talking about, there are other goalies on that list as well. But I think that list is headlined by Matt Murray, obviously.
I disagree. I think it's a headline by for trading.
For trading.
I think Freddie's more headline.
No, because Freddie still has a contract. I'm talking about goalies who are restricted free agents. Yeah, I'm not saying Murray's the top goalie. In fact, this goes into my point, which is this is such a bad time to be a team looking to trade a goalie because the market is so saturated. It's going to be hard to get top value. And speaking of Murray, obviously he's sort of my benchmark for this because obviously as a Penguins fan, I keep up to date on those trade talks specifically. But the Penguins are asking for a first rounder.
Are they?
Yeah, and that's what is a lot of teams are a little bit hesitant in trading for that, because obviously the first rounder is a big asking price. You don't just give up.
Well, yeah, and you're giving up
the
one
Penguins
already.
seem to be giving up first rounders for nothing, but you don't just give up a first rounder, for nothing.
For obviously, a goalie who's kind of started to decline.
And Khudobin is sort of another market of goalies. I think you have your sort of number one goalies who are hitting the market, like your Braden Holtbys, for example, who are good goalies.
Robin Lehner.
Your Robin Lehners, exactly.
Yeah.
Then you have your goalies who are a little bit younger, restricted free agents who are also hitting the market. I think Markstrom is a free agent this year as well. So him and Murray are sort of the two main guys who are restricted. And then you have this third category of goalies who weren't necessarily starting goalies this year, but they're still very solid. And I think Khudobin is leading that market. But if he wins the Stanley Cup with Khudobin, what does Dallas decide to do?
He's already talked with Dallas. Like, they've already had talks, and he wants to stay in Dallas.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think they have the cap space. I don't really follow with much as Dallas as I do other teams. They have the cap space, I think. Like, yeah, some notable goalies, like Braden Holtby, Corey Crawford. Like, there's those goalies who are, like, the big names. Then there's guys like Aaron Dell, Keith Kincaid, Brian Elliott, Mike Smith.
Yeah.
Like, these are all guys who, not necessarily are guys you're going to count on to win you a cup. But these are guys who are definitely liable to your team.
And I mean, you never know, because you talk about Khudobin, and I mean, I think we sort of got distracted by him being a free agent, because not only is he going to play his way into a good contract in free agency, he might play his way into being a starting goalie for a Stanley Cup champion team.
Yeah, and honestly, I could see him doing that. Like, if he keeps playing the way he is and he signs a contract, because he wants to stay here, right?
Yeah.
So he's playing in a team, in a franchise where he wants to stay, so he's going to play harder for that.
Yeah.
And he's going to play for a team who, if they win the Cup this year, it will be reigning Cup champions. Like, they'll be off that, he's Russian, so he's going to party hard. You'll see maybe an Ovechkin-like kind of party.
I don't know if anyone can top Ovi's party. That was like a 15-year bender in the making.
Well, we'll have to see, honestly. Like, if Dallas plays the way... The Game 2 goes tomorrow, yeah?
Game 2 tomorrow night, yeah.
Tomorrow night. Like, if they win that game, you could argue that series is over.
At 2-0, it would be... it would really put Tampa Bay under a lot of pressure.
And then you got a micro look, like, was not having Stamkos in the... like.
And apparently he's, like... I mean, Cooper's being very, very coy with the way he's speaking. Yeah. He's basically saying, oh, watch out, you never know what could happen, which makes sense, because obviously Stamkos is a really important player for them, so he doesn't want everyone, including Dallas, knowing exactly what's going on.
But at the same time, he's shitting his pants right now, pardon my language, but he's scared, because, like, if he goes down 2-0, he might go down as the coach that chokes the hardest.
Well, and I mean, his job's already, like, it's crazy to say, because we're talking about a team that's in the Stanley Cup Finals, but...
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
The job has always been cup or bust for this Tampa team. If they don't get this done, that'll be 2 trips to the Stanley Cup Finals under Cooper. Yep. 0 wins to show, 0 cups to show for it. You missed the playoffs 1 year. Then you're also swept as the President's Trophy winners.
Last year, yeah.
I mean, like, obviously Tampa has done a lot of impressive things in his tenure, but if you're not winning a championship with a championship caliber team, you start to, your job is still under jeopardy.
You know who he reminds me of? Kind of like a Pete DeBoer, in a sense where he had a team.
That Sharks team.
They had a very good team. They made it to the finals that 1 year.
Finally, yeah.
Finally, right? Like, after all this time, finally we get there. But it reminds me in a sense where you have all this talent. You have Pavelski, Thornton, Burns in his prime. Couture is rising up. Marlowe and Hurdle and Vlasic. All these guys are in their primes, you can argue, or rising up, and you don't get it done. Like, look at the team Tampa's had now. Stamkos was in his prime 5 years ago.
You've had Stamkos forever.
Kucherov,
forever.
And now Braden Point is rising.
Yeah,
like,
Hedman you've had forever.
Oh,
and honestly, Hedman. Like, I'd be hard pressed to argue that there's another defenseman better than Victor Hedman in the NHL right now.
Who?
Like,
Who would you argue?
Maybe Roman Yossi.
No, but Hedman. Look at Hedman. He scored an overtime goal.
Victor Hedman has been unbelievable.
He's been the best, in my opinion. Him, Braden Point, and Nikita Kucherov are the top 3 players on that team.
Absolutely. And I think that if Tampa Bay wins the Stanley Cup, Victor Hedman is winning the Conn Smythe, and I
don't know about that, considering you had a 5-point game from both Point and Kucherov. Point had overtime winners.
That's true.
Like, honestly, that team is full of Calder Cup Not Calder Cup. Conn Smythe. My apologies. My Conn Smythe Trophy candidates, like you could go Vasilevsky. I don't think he's been talked about enough.
That's true. Vasilevsky's been very solid. He just hides behind a very good team.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like the poison dart. It's like the poison dart behind a beautiful flower. Like he's great. He's excellent, and he's not getting talked about. I think because you're right. Because you get guys like Point who are getting 5 points a game.
Right. I think my only argument with that is I think typically the Conn Smythe winner is either the goalie who plays exceptionally well or, the main attacking threat. I mean, you look at the past Conn Smythe winners. You had Ryan O'Reilly last year.
Yep.
You had Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin. I just assume Alex Ovechkin was the Conn Smythe winner.
I think it was Alex.
I believe he was. And then you go back down the line. I know Malkin won it in 2009 when the Penguins won.
But let's
I know Kane has one.
Jonathan Quick has one.
So you see, it's typically forwards or goalies, and
you don't get a defenseman.
You don't see defensemen win it very often. So my argument is, I think that because of how exceptionally well Hedman is playing, maybe that gets the nod. If people look at him and they say, wow, this is a defenseman who's doing stuff. Actually, Duncan Keith won in 2015.
A defenseman.
A defenseman. But he's the only defenseman who's won it going back to 2007, Scott Niedermayer. As I just pull up the list.
Wow.
Every year it's typically either the leading scorer or the starting goalie. So from 2007 onwards, you had Zetterberg, Malkin, Tays, then a couple of goalies in Tim Thomas and Jonathan Quick, but then Patrick Kane, Justin Williams, Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, Ryan O'Reilly. The only defenseman who's won it since 2008 is Duncan Keith. And I think that's that year where, Duncan Keith was like the best defenseman in the playoffs, and it wasn't even close.
No.
And I think we're in a scenario where Victor Hedman's the best defenseman in the playoffs, and it's not even close.
No. You can argue maybe Heiskanen is close.
Heiskanen, I think, but that's my argument. I think if Dallas wins
then
the
you
Stanley
can look
Cup,
at,
like you look at a defenseman might win the Conn Smythe either side, because Heiskanen's been incredible as well.
I think if Dallas wins, it's going to be Hudobin.
But that's
honestly,
the thing,
I think it'll be Hudobin. I think he'll deserve it. He's been kind of kicked around the league a few times. Played in Boston. He played elsewhere. I can't remember where. But I think he's really found a home here in Dallas, and I think it's really going to come down to, can he keep playing this for potentially 6 more games, if not less, right?
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, the way they've been playing, even though Seguin is... And it goes to show the depth in Dallas. Seguin... And both teams, they've had their... Granted, Seguin's in the lineup. He's not producing, though. Stamkos out of the lineup, but they're producing. It goes to show the depth. Big guys step up in the
Here's my only sort of... Just to play devil's advocate for arguing for Heiskanen.
Yeah.
Heiskanen is 4th right now in scoring in the playoffs.
Who's ahead
as a defenseman. McKinnon has 25 points. Point has 25 points. Kucherov has 26 points. Heiskanen has 23. And so he's been a shutdown defenseman defensively, and he's also put up the 4th most points in the playoffs out of anybody. And so obviously I'm not taking anything away from what Hudobin has done in net.
Yeah.
But I think personally I'd advocate for Victor Hedman. If Tampa Bay wins a cup, I'd vote Victor Hedman. And I think Heiskanen has done almost as good a job defensively and has also put up the points, where I think that you look at that and
that's
and
a good argument there.
There's a really good argument there.
I agree. Game 2 goes tomorrow, 7:30, I believe, on CBC. Catch it. We're not sellouts, I promise.
We're just passing on that
information.
information.
Yeah, I know. Let's go to basketball.
All right. I was gonna say, before we switch to basketball, any last thoughts on the series? I think we covered a lot of that.
Colorado in 5.
Colorado in 5. I think that I think the last thing I'll say is I kind of agree with you. I'm not going to say it's a must-win game for Tampa, but I think if Tampa falls down 0-2,
I think
it's going to be
on the scoreboard.
tough.
On the scoreboard, it's only 2-0 down, but in their heads, I think it's a mental loss.
That's my point, and that's why I agree with you. Where I wouldn't say it's a must-win, but I think that Tampa Bay down 2-0, it's going to be even more difficult because of, like you said, the mentality of, okay, well, everyone's expecting us to win. And then we're here, and now we're just...
And then the whole issue with, if you bring Stamkos in too early, you could have another KD situation.
Right, rushing a guy back too early.
And then there goes his career, basically. Sits out a whole year. Tampa doesn't go anywhere next year or something. And so it's a good segue into basketball, speaking of KD.
Yeah. We were wrong about the Clippers.
My goodness God. Thank goodness for Jamal Murray and Jokic.
Yep.
Yep. Oh my goodness God. What a series that was. Kawhi should have stayed. No question about it. Paul George, I don't know where he went that whole series, that whole playoffs.
What are you talking? You mean that 3-pointer that hit the side of the backboard?
Yeah,
wasn't good
man.
enough
That was the highlight of that series. Do I think Denver is good enough to beat LeBron? I do not think so.
No.
They don't have the right matchups.
Well, I mean, we didn't think the Clippers were good. And I mean, granted, the Nuggets took out the Clippers, but I think the Clippers on paper are more talented.
On paper they are, but man, Jamal, he played with heart, man.
And how about Jokic?
Ooh.
The guy's attempting behind-the-back no-look passes in the fourth quarter of a Game 7
Hey, it
and
worked.
connecting with them.
That team came together. Like, I feel like a lot of the Clippers, it's like you rely on those two guys, and, you know, you can argue that Jamal Murray is not Kawhi caliber, obviously not.
No, but he played like it
But he
in the
played like
in the
Kawhi.
Game 7.
What, 40 points
40
in that
points in Game 7, and Jokic had a triple-double after the third quarter.
Jamal Murray had more points, almost double the amount of points that Paul George and Kawhi had that entire game.
Yeah. And I mean, once again, obviously, Paul George is going to get a lot of criticism because of how he played in the playoffs, but Kawhi Leonard didn't play well in Game 7.
No, Kawhi, those last 3 games, I don't know where he went.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to Kawhi, but the claw, what happened to him?
And I think the problem is the Clippers don't have a player who can create their own shot. Like, Kawhi can create his own shot, but outside of that, like, Lou Williams is basically a six-man, the role that he's been played.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can lean on him, but you can't lean on him
same like Pat Beverly.
every day.
Yeah, same
right?
with
like
Beverly.
Pat Beverly, Montrezl Harrell. Good players, but which of those guys can create their own shot? And I think the one thing you can say about the Raptors is Kyle Lowry can create his own shot.
You can argue even when Siakam was not choking, he created his own shots.
I mean, I think Siakam still has room to grow. I think so does Van Vliet, where like they can create their own shot, but not consistently. But Kyle Lowry, I think Kyle Lowry is so underrated because he took a lot of the pressure off of Kawhi Leonard.
Oh.
Because if Kawhi wasn't hitting his shots, you could go to Kyle. And
yeah.
And when Kawhi
agree.
wasn't hitting his shots in this series, you couldn't
can't
go to Paul George. You couldn't go to Paul George because of the way he was playing.
Couldn't go to Pat Beverly.
And then outside of that, where are you going to go to create your offense?
Yeah. It was Kawhi and Paul George show, and if Paul George didn't have a perfect shot, even though he had many of them hitting the side of the backboard, you know what it seemed like to me? It seemed like they just thought it would be so easy to run over these guys from Denver. They're potheads. They smoke a lot of weed.
They're up there in
They're
the
up
clouds
there,
literally because they play at elevation in Denver.
And then you get guys like Kitchener-born Jamal Murray and Serbian, I believe. Jokic?
Yeah, I believe so.
I believe so. And these guys, these guys are underrated. They're underrated, and I think unfortunately people never gave them enough credit. And then they came out here, they shut everyone up. They literally said, "Shut up! We're gonna show you what it's like to." They're the first team in NBA history to come back from 3-1 deficits in back-to-back series. Yeah. Doc Rivers will not have a job by the end of next season.
I would not disagree with you.
Only coach to
I would not disagree with you. And here's my point. Like, first of all, only coach. He's done it 3 times in 3 separate decades.
3 times.
In 3 separate decades.
Yeah.
And the Clippers. This stat that the Clippers have never made it to the conference finals in their history.
In their history?
They're 0-8 in games that could have clinched a series in the second round.
5 of them were. No.
And 3 of them were in this series. This goes back to like the Lob City Clippers with Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan.
Oh man, that was a good team though.
Yeah, and they just couldn't take that next step. And you talk about next step. That's the other thing. And also the last thing I'll say with Paul George is his post-game press conference after Game 7.
I didn't watch it.
He was talking about how this team needed time to gel, and this wasn't a championship or bust year for them. And I mean, first of all, yes, it was a championship or bust year for you because Kawhi Leonard can opt out of his contract after next year.
Oh, can he?
Yep, it's a 3-year contract, but the third year is a player option. Year 1 is done. Next year's year 2. He can choose to skip year 3.
Wow.
Paul George, I think he still has a couple more years left on his contract.
I think he signed a longer one than Kawhi.
the Clippers gave up 5 first-round drafts, like an insane number of draft picks to get him.
It was unbelievable.
And if you lose Kawhi Leonard next year, you just gave up 4 years of draft capital for
2 years,
of bust. So I would agree with you that this was a championship year, or bust year. And even if you don't make the championship, like, fair enough. If you make the finals, if you lose to the Lakers in 7 games and it's a hard-fought series, you couldn't even take the next step. You couldn't even get close to getting close to winning a championship, right?
No, you couldn't.
So a second-round elimination isn't something that's not like a worrying concern if you're the Clippers.
Oh,
and
you got more pressing issues on your hand than that. You
absolutely
got Kawhi's future. You got.
And the other thing is, like, oh, it wasn't a championship or bust season. Oh, we needed more time to gel. That's the other thing. Like, I mean, look at last year. Kawhi gets traded to the Raptors. Initially, there were reports that he's not going to play for us, which obviously got, like, squashed very quickly.
Squashed them right away.
He was going to
come and play.
But the second he's traded, you're talking about there are reports of American news reports saying that he's not going to play. Obviously he is. But, Nurse is a first-year head coach in the NBA. Kawhi's on a new team. You trade for Marc Gasol at the deadline in, like, February.
You pull up this guy named Siakam. Who don't know who's
Siakam
that guy?
Siakam emerges out of nowhere, and you're telling me that team didn't have that team.
There was like Kyle Lowry was like the only guy that had been there since like day one.
That team gelled together in less than a year and still won the championship. Yeah. So there's no excuse for the chemistry wasn't there.
No, because you two are the only players coming in. You had Beverly that was already there. You had Williams that was already there. These are guys, and this isn't your first year in the league.
Doc Rivers is a coach that's been with the Clippers forever, so he's got the system.
Yeah, he's got a system. They make the playoffs. That's not hard for them.
And Kawhi's shown that he can adapt because he adapted with the Raptors last year.
Oh yeah, their play style was Nurse's play style is so different to Rivers. And look what happened. They brought a chip here.
Yeah.
So Paul George making all these excuses is just another way of saying, yeah, we sucked and we let everyone down.
Yeah. And then so going now into the Nuggets and the Lakers, I think we're both. We both predicted the Lakers would beat the Clippers.
Well, we both said that the Lakers would make it to the finals.
And I think we're both. Yeah, my point is, I think we're both very much still saying that the Lakers are going to move on. But I mean, fair play to the Nuggets.
Wow.
They
are fun to watch.
The West is going to be interesting moving forward because you have sort of the Lakers and the Clippers who are seen as the dominant teams. I mean, Harden and Westbrook, can they figure it out in Houston? I don't think so. I don't think you think so either.
I don't think so. I've never thought so.
But, that's a good team. What's going to happen with OKC with, like, the 1,000,003 draft picks that they have in the next 3 years?
Yeah,
and they could get more if they decide to trade Chris Paul. Right?
I don't know if they're going to trade Chris Paul. I think they need him. I think they really do need him for the rebuild.
Well, you see, I think this is interesting because he's like 30. He's getting up there in age. So the decision for them is, do they trade Chris Paul, go full rebuild? But my point is, OKC, could be coming up with, they could be on the up with the amount of draft capital they have.
Well, they have like 4-round first picks now.
Dallas has an insane
Mavericks
1-2 punch.
Oh, Mavericks look so.
The Nuggets
deadly.
look like they're only getting better. Utah, Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell are both really young. So this is a Western Conference where it's like the Lakers are realizing that they need to win and they need to win now because there are other teams who are
on the up.
Oh
yeah.
And that's why for the Clippers to say this is not a championship or bust season, I don't know if I can agree with that because you struggled against just Luka at 20 years old, 21 years old, whatever he is.
I think continue.
No, give Luka another full season and have Porzingis there fully healthy. Like that's gonna be a very difficult series for the Clippers to get by.
I think there would be a whole different conversation had the Mavericks beaten the Clippers. I think honestly, Rivers doesn't have a job. I think Kawhi want to trade, and I think Paul George continues to be Paul George and complain. Oh man, the Mavericks are going to be the top team. I would argue in the West at one point in the next 5 years.
In the next 5 years, yeah.
Oh my goodness, they are the Luka Doncic.
Crazy.
He's my favorite player right now in the league, and he's not even playing right now.
Yeah.
Let's both agree that Lakers got to win this year.
Oh yeah.
Kuzma is not going to play like this every year.
It's the
Rondo's
Lakers'
not
chance.
Gonna play like this
it's the Lakers' chance.
This is it. It's now or never. And this was the Clippers' mentality.
Yeah, and they have because they're big favorites against Denver. Yeah. And then no disrespect to Boston or Miami, but the Lakers would be favored against them as well.
Let's talk about that series. That is a very, very, very interesting series because the Heat, obviously Jimmy Buckets,
is a man.
He is ridiculous. He is. if they win the championship, like everything, he's gonna be MVP finals MVP, no
Oh yeah.
questions about
Oh
it.
yeah.
He's taken that team, he's taken that Heat team, and he did it with other teams. Philadelphia, he took with
Minnesota.
Sorry, I choked on my own.
Yeah. No, he did it with Minnesota, and even with Chicago.
The Bulls, yeah. Sorry, I choked on my own.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. As I let you catch your breath again there, no, Butler has really adapted really well to this Heat team, and with the young pieces that they have around them, they've gelled together really well.
Yeah, I agree.
Like people are like Bam, that block by Bam Adebayo on Jason Tatum in Game 1 was filthy.
That was disgusting.
Like the only block I can think of that's been better is the LeBron James block in the finals.
2016.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like other than that, I don't think I've seen a more impressive block.
Yeah, oh man, that was ridiculous. That was Martin. No, What was What's his name again? Who went up to go for the dunk?
Tatum.
Oh, it was Tatum, not
Kemba.
Smart.
Smart. Yeah. So Smart, who's apparently screaming and crying in the locker rooms after losses now.
He's such a cry, bro. He did this in the Raptors series where he complains and he shits on himself, or not himself but his team if they lose. And you don't want that as a team.
Well, he's passionate, but maybe a little too passionate sometimes, and it can hurt the team. But
sometimes it's better not to say anything. Forget about what happened. Move on to the next game than to start yelling, "Oh, yo, this is bullshit. Yo, I ain't about this," because that's just gonna kill the chemistry.
Yeah,
you're gonna get a lot. It's gonna be. Sorry, go ahead.
No.
I lost my train of thought.
I think, and the thing is, I think we've all sort of slept on Miami because if we look at this series, I think Tatum's the guy in Boston and Jimmy Butler's the guy in Miami. They're pretty even. Like Tatum's a hell of a player that I think people don't give him enough credit. But Butler's been just on a different level in the playoffs. But then you look at the pieces that Miami have, and they match up well with the piece. Like obviously,
honestly, they do.
Obviously, Boston has Kemba Walker and Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart, and Gordon Hayward's actually apparently active to play.
Is he?
Yep.
Is he coming back?
Yes, apparently Gordon Hayward will be back for the rest of the series.
Is that a good idea?
That's how concerned Boston is that they're like, no, Gordon Hayward is going to be playing. But Miami has pieces too. Bam Adebayo is a legit player. Tyler Hero's been a monster.
He's been excellent.
Duncan Robinson might be the best shooter I've seen outside of Steph Curry and Matt Thomas from 3. Got to shout out Matty Ice for the Raptors. But yeah, Duncan Robinson, the way this guy gets his shot off so quickly, he's been very impressive. And
I agree.
Crowder.
Yeah.
Like this is a Miami team that has pieces.
They have everything. They're missing that. They're you know what they're missing? They're missing, and it's weird because they're up 2-1, and I think they're just missing some finesse and some finish. And I think
and I think that might be the difference between playing Boston and playing the Lakers. Yeah,
exactly. And I think if they win this series, I think the favorites will still be LA, but I think people will really look into it and be like, okay, maybe we need to look at this again and realize that the matchups are more equal than what you can argue most of the playoffs have been.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think obviously it's just no one can match up with the star power of LeBron and Anthony Davis.
I agree. And then they got Rondo playing out of his mind. Kuzma's playing unbelievable. So there's already 4 guys on there.
And that's what you said. It's like, can they keep getting those performances out of Rondo, Kuzma, Dwight Howard? Because if those role players don't keep stepping up, like I don't care how good LeBron and AD is. Actually, to be fair, LeBron and AD might be good enough to still win the series all by themselves, but it's going to be
AD
way
himself,
harder.
Yeah.
It's going to be way harder to win, especially in NBA Finals with just 2 guys.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone needs help. Like Jordan needed Pippen and Rodman, right? Like LeBron needed Kyrie and Kevin Love.
And
like
J.R. Smith.
Well, I mean, maybe it didn't need J.R. Smith, but my point is, no matter how dominant of a player you are, you can't do it all by yourself.
No, and even if you wanted to do it all by yourself, you can't. LeBron didn't win 2016 by himself.
I mean, he did like about 80% of the work, but you need that other 20%.
Yeah, and you can't do that on your own.
Exactly.
Even if he tried to, man, they would have just you got to have that guy you can go to, you can rely on.
And the last thing about the NBA, Giannis Antetokounmpo was named the MVP of the league for the 2nd straight season.
Should have been LeBron.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it should have been LeBron. Because LeBron is what year is he in his Laker contract? Is this his first year?
Second year as a Laker. Second year as a Laker.
And so my issue is Okay, maybe Giannis should have won it, fine. But when LeBron only gets 16 votes, I have an issue with that. Out of all the votes that happened, I can't remember how many there were.
He got 16 of 101.
101.
So Giannis got 85 first place votes. LeBron got the other 16.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
So you're talking about a guy who's taken the Lakers from this team that was in the basement for a long time after Kobe and his dynasty and bringing them to conference finals. And Antetokounmpo lost in the second round.
I mean, it's a regular season trophy, though. It's a regular season trophy.
I understand, but the Lakers had a better record.
Milwaukee had the best record in the NBA.
Okay, fine. For what, the second year in a row?
For the second year in a row.
Okay, fine. So, fine, you can argue that. But I think what LeBron has done as a player is he's revamped that franchise. And I don't think Antetokounmpo has revamped that franchise.
And you see, this is where, to just play devil's advocate with that, the Lakers are always going to be relevant because they're the Lakers. And yes, LeBron has turned them into a championship contender from a basement team. I can't argue with that. But we're talking about a scenario where Giannis re-signs with the Bucks and then convinces free agents to come to Milwaukee. That's something that's never been done before. You talk about LeBron left Cleveland.
What about the whole Kawhi and Paul George? Well, literally the whole same situation.
No, but they went to L.A., which is different because L.A. is a big market. They're going to get the players anyways,
not
right?
The Clippers. The Clippers compared to the Lakers.
It's still L.A., though. Like, I know that the Clippers aren't the Lakers. But
when you go to a Clippers game,
but L.A. is L.A. That's like the Brooklyn, the Nets aren't the Knicks, but Brooklyn is still New York, right? So Kevin Durant wants to go to New York. He realizes he doesn't need to go play for the Knicks. If he wants to live in New York, he can go to Brooklyn.
Do you think that KD and Kyrie knew that Steve Nash was going to be the coach at one point?
They picked the coach.
So they picked him?
They picked 100%. They picked the coach.
That's a great coach, eh? Steve Nash.
Like 100% ownership sat down with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and said, "Who do you want to coach you guys?" And Kevin Durant said Steve Nash, and they hired Steve Nash.
And honestly,
that's what happened.
Good on Steve Nash for taking that job.
Yeah.
I think definitely it's a team that you have two guys to work around, and you're a player as yourself. Get in that role, and you understand what needs to be worked on, what doesn't need to be worked on, how to get back out of the basement.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I think that some people were, particularly Stephen A. Smith, was saying that it was like a white privilege hire because he has no prior coaching experience. And while I recognize that there probably should be a lot more black coaches in the NBA because there are a lot of like really qualified black coaches who aren't being picked.
Yeah.
Like he was hired because Kevin Durant wanted him on the team, right?
A black man wanted the white man on the team.
Well, not only that, it's like the players chose the coach. It wasn't like
management upset. Okay, you're coming in because we want you.
So anyway, as much as like obviously this is an isolated incident, I think that for Stephen A. to say that. I think that doesn't make sense because of the manner.
In this sense, it doesn't make sense
because of the way that this was hired, where it was a complete choice.
It's player option.
It's like LeBron being the GM of his team. Like he basically makes the trades and picks the coaches and everything.
Yeah.
Like Kevin Durant did that, where he picked this coach and he wanted Steve Nash.
And I like Steve Nash. Obviously he's Canadian. He's going to represent Canada. He's won a few championships?
He has not.
Oh, he's the one guy.
He is not.
He never won it in Phoenix and didn't win it in LA.
Never won a championship. So maybe he can do it as a coach.
So yeah, exactly.
But that goes to anyways. What I'm saying is the thing is though he is a first year coach, and so I think there will be a lot of pressure because I think he'll be on a short leash where if he doesn't perform, I think he could get fired.
But I think I disagree with that because he's only on his first year. I think you got to give him a few. It's going to be a lot of growing pains in Brooklyn. You're not going to. Even though you have KD and Kyrie, it took LeBron 2 to 3 years to get LA back into
Right. Yeah.
So
and then going back to sort of our original point with MVP, I think the other problem that LeBron gets is it's sort of like to bring it to hockey because that's sort of what we compare a lot of things to. It's like you can argue that for every year between 2007 to 2015, Sidney Crosby should have won the Hart because he was the best player in the NHL. He should have. That's not how the MVP works, though. They don't just give it to the best player, right? Like Tom Brady didn't win MVP every year because he was the best quarterback on the best team, right? Like, so LeBron James has been the best player in the world every year for like the last 15 years. I don't think anyone's arguing with that.
No.
And like you can argue, like LeBron James should be in the MVP conversation. It has been in the MVP conversation every year. I think it sort of becomes that sort of like Sidney Crosby thing too in the NHL, where it's like, I mean, he's held to such an extreme standard where he has to be elite on his own elite standards.
But he's elite, and he exceeds those expectations. Even.
Yeah, no, he does. And so I think that's sort of like the one thing that also goes against them, where it's like LeBron's going to be in the convo every year.
And Giannis apparently too.
I mean, I personally think Giannis deserved it because of they had a better record, and he put up basically the same amount of numbers in fewer minutes.
Right.
And was also an elite defensive player as well.
Yeah.
But there's obviously, like I said, you can make a case for LeBron James' MVP literally every single year.
And I'm not going to take away from Giannis. Definitely, he's shown to be arguably the best player in the East, if not obviously in the league. You could argue. I just think 85-16, people were just like, oh, he's the best team in the league. Giannis was the best player, therefore he deserves MVP. I don't think they looked at every single thing, and I don't think they gave LeBron the credit. I'm going back to the whole, they were basement dwellers for the past 3 years,
right.
And LeBron comes in. Granted, you can argue he does that for every team he comes to.
And the other argument you could make is, he also had the help of Anthony Davis, who's a top 10 player in the NBA, and Giannis has Chris Middleton.
Right, okay, fine. And then you can argue, okay, yeah, he did it basically by himself.
Right.
So I guess you could go either way. There's more of a Cardinals are killing. There's more of a argument towards Giannis.
And if I had to give my ballot, I would have put Giannis first, LeBron second, James Harden third. If I had to vote, if I had to vote, that's what I would.
Why James Harden?
I mean, I don't like him as a play style. I don't like iso ball. I'm just gonna heave a 40-foot three, but he's gonna hit it like half the time. But you can't argue that he's been the most exciting offensive player in the NBA for the past few seasons. And so for that reason, you have to have him up there. I think he's been the third best player in the NBA this year.
Okay. I'm not going to take that away. You've definitely proved an argument.
And the last thing to say before I think we'll switch into some NFL talk is, obviously, as both being Raptors fans, Pascal Siakam finished 9th in MVP voting.
Regular season, remember?
Yeah, regular season award, so you forget how he had a shaky start to the playoffs. And I think this is more just me saying, Raptors fans who are listening, relax.
Mm-hmm.
He had a bad series.
It's okay. Yeah, they went out before we did.
When's the last time? I guess Kawhi Leonard. But when's the last time we had a player top 10 in MVP voting who's like a committed player of this team? We really haven't had a player with this level of potential who's shown this talent. Obviously, he's got to keep it up next year. Obviously, he's got to start delivering in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
But he was named second team All NBA this year, and he's 9th in MVP voting. And I think that should be the takeaway this season, not it's people calling him, instead of Spicy P, Mild P in the playoffs.
It's too bad because he's going to be known for these playoffs and his spin move and the glass cannon he is. Yeah, you're right. Look at the overall. 9th in how many players are there in the league?
Yeah, exactly.
And so many other candidates. He's 8 away from Giannis.
Yeah.
Which is to say something.
Yep.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Raptors fans, a lot of fans, they look at the negatives of their team and they like to blame it and pick those little.
And I mean, you have, as you say, you have to look at that. But I think when you look at both scenarios, I think you do have to sort of have that glass half full look and be optimistic towards the future, because when's the last time the Raptors have had a player committed to the team, second team All NBA, and top 10 in MVP voting?
Yeah, no, exactly. I totally agree with you. That was good.
Yeah. All right, switching over to the NFL, and we are into week 2 in the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
And, I'll give you full permission here. Where do you want to go? Any team you want to talk about? Any players you want to talk about?
Let's talk about my Browns.
The Cleveland Browns. They won.
They're victorious.
They won a game.
They win by much, and they only beat the Bengals, which is not very assuring for a future. Baker Mayfield, man, he played great that game.
Yeah.
OBJ caught his first touchdown.
Well, apparently he was going to get traded. Then he isn't going to get traded.
Yeah.
Then he had a great second week.
And then,
of course, everyone over analyzes everything.
And then Chubbs and Hunt had good games. They switched. We got 2 excellent running backs.
Well, this is the interesting thing with Cleveland is they're running the ball like it's the 70s in the NFL.
Well, when you have guys on that caliber, I would run it too.
It's going to be interesting to see if they can keep that up for the whole season. If teams are going to learn to stop the run.
Well, let's just go through every game that's happening right now. Giants and Bears.
Yeah, so
Barkley's out.
Giants talk, as myself being a Giants fan.
Yeah.
Look, Monday Night Football against the Steelers week 1, we didn't play great, but the Steelers are a much better team than us.
Yeah, Roethlisberger is
and we
fantastic.
stayed in the game. They have an elite defense, and we were able to do a little bit of moves on offense.
We got some promising features here and there.
First week with the O-line, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Week 2 against the Bears, we lose 17-13. We fall down 17-0. Terrible start. Saquon Barkley out. Reports are it's a torn ACL.
Yeah.
So he's most likely done for the year.
So that's a kill to your running game.
Sucks.
Yeah.
But I mean, great. We're gonna go from 2-14 to like 1-15 now because of that.
Yeah.
But I mean, the one thing I will say though is, yes, it's the Bears. They're not that great of a team, but we still held them to only 17 points on offense.
And you came back from a 17-0 deficit.
Yeah. So we shut them out in the second half, which I think speaks volumes.
Oh yeah.
We picked Trubisky off twice, which is good to see, particularly because our secondary is probably one of the worst areas of our team.
But if you look at those picks, those are easy picks.
No.
That first one was
easy.
That
first one was easy. That second
one was tough.
I have to shout out that second pick.
That was a good
Absolutely unbelievable pick. But, I mean, the thing with the Giants is it looks like we're going to be competitive in games. We're going to lose a lot, and we should – and, you know, if you're a Giants fan, don't expect us to be winning a lot of games, but – it is positive to see that we're 0-2, but we've been competitive in both games. And I think that's the important thing.
Yeah,
because
that's the one to take away.
With a first-year coach, a young quarterback, we're just looking to build on the culture that we have. And so if we're competitive in football games, that's going to be important. And the Bears are 2-0. Just quickly, Trubisky hasn't looked great.
So they haven't really played a real team yet either.
The Bears are, but they're 2-0. But they're 2-0.
So what? They'll lose 7 games in a row.
Once again, exactly. It's early. Right. We'll see. But they're 2-0.
Let's talk about two surprising teams to myself as a football fan: the LA Rams and the Philadelphia Eagles.
Eagles suck.
Oh my God.
Well, the Eagles are injured to shit.
But that doesn't mean anything. So is San Fran. They lose like half their players today.
Well, yeah, and they're 0-1.
And they won today.
They did win today.
So
but who did they win against?
The Jets. Okay, granted it's the Jets,
exactly.
But that doesn't matter.
Exactly.
You still won the game. They destroyed the Jets at home.
Well, but also we're talking about the 49ers they made it to the Super Bowl last year. The
Garoppolo's
Eagles,
out.
Yeah, but Garoppolo just hands the ball off 40 times a game.
Right. Well, no kidding. The LA Rams have definitely shocked, I think, a lot of people in the sense that they've come out swinging.
I mean, they have talent on that roster. That
do.
Goes without saying.
They have Gurley. They have Gurley's on the
Falcons.
Oh, thank you.
They have talent on that team. You know, I mean, Goff, I'd argue is a system quarterback, but he's playing in a really good system with Sean McVay over there. You know, they have talent over there at wide receiver. You look at Woods. You know, on defense, they have a really talented defense. Obviously, Aaron Donald and Ramsey.
Yeah, Ramsey.
Highlights that. And so, I mean, this is a Rams team that can win football games if they figure it out. I'd expect them. Yes, I'd expect them to be flirting with a playoff spot this year, and their 2-0 record. I mean, did they get lucky with that call at the end of the game against the Cowboys? You could argue that.
I mean, yeah, you could definitely argue that call was
they're competitive against a team that a lot of people expect to make the playoffs, and then they won a game against a team that is struggling, and that's what you do if you want to be a successful football team.
What's going on with Philadelphia?
Well, they don't have an offensive line.
What's going on with Wentz?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's hard to judge his performance when they don't have an offensive line. And a lot of injuries. But this is an Eagles team that just can't seem to figure it out since they won that Super Bowl.
No, they seem to have just been in this weird stupor where they just can't get it together. Bucks and Panthers. Brady gets his first win as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, 31-17 they just looked dominant that whole game.
Well, here's the thing. Obviously the Bucks didn't play well against the Saints last week.
Yeah, I mean, they could have played. Yeah, you could have played a bit better.
But I think that was to be expected because I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's Brady. Oh, it's Gronk. Oh, it's Mike Evans. Oh, it's Fournette. Oh, it's all these guys." Yes, but their defense still has question marks, and this is a new team still working out the kinks. And the Saints are a dominant team. I picked the Saints to win the division last week.
Yes, you did.
But I said the Bucks would make the playoffs and they would be a good team. But I still think this is a Bucks team that's gonna win games against teams that they should beat, like the Carolina Panthers. They're gonna win 9 or 10 games this year and get into a wild card spot. But I think this is what we've seen. When they play against a really good team like the Saints, it's going to be tough for them to win games. But when they play against, the rest of the league, they're going to be able to win those games.
Exactly.
And, I mean, the Panthers outside of McCaffrey don't really have anything. I mean, I don't think there's much to add there.
Bridgewater's okay. Oh, no, it's Taylor?
Yeah, no,
it's Bridgewater. Yeah, it's Bridgewater.
It's Bridgewater. He threw a pick today, I think.
Yep. It wasn't not a McCaffrey is the only saving grace on that team.
I mean, yeah, they're just, once again, new coach, young team that they're building around. It's just about building that culture and trying to grow.
Let's 49ers and Jets. I'm going to get to the good games last.
Right.
Not much to say here.
Are you concerned with all the injuries? Because not only did Garoppolo leave, so did Raheem Mostert.
Mostert as well. Yeah, if you're a 49ers fan, you should be concerned.
And you should also be concerned because you're 1-1 now, but you were 0-1 going into today.
Yeah, against a team that was also struggling in the Jets, but we know the Jets are not the greatest team in the world. I don't think there's any surprises. Garoppolo started the game off, and he started strong. He lit the Jets up, and then after that, it was just kind of back and forth, punt.
Also, oh wait, no, different team. That's my bad. But I think that there might be a serious Super Bowl hangover. Obviously, they didn't win the Super Bowl, but they made the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's hard to put together consecutive winnings, like consecutive championship caliber seasons in the NFL.
What about Mahomes and them? They're leading right now.
Well, yeah, I think KC is a different story because
I lied. They're not leading right now.
Okay, well there you go. But yeah, and we'll talk about Kansas City in a little bit. But obviously, all these injuries are going to be tough, and obviously, you already have a loss on your record, a divisional loss on your record.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
yeah, I think there's a little bit. It's once again still early, but I think you're right that you should be a little bit concerned.
A little bit, just not too much. You have to hope that Garoppolo's will come back and all these guys.
Obviously, you need to evaluate those injuries, and Jets are going to be a joke this year. I don't really think we need to talk too much about them. They're just not competitive.
Broncos and Steelers. Broncos made it close.
They did.
Drew Lock after getting hurt. The young guy came in. I don't remember who it was.
Lock was hurt. They brought veteran guy came in. I'm gonna blank on his name. It'll come to me as I start talking about how dominant the Steelers were defensively in this game.
Oh my goodness, they just
Driscoll.
Yeah, Broncos just couldn't get anything going up until that third and fourth quarter.
Well, I think I'm gonna not have the full stats in front of me, but there were like 7 or 8 sacks.
That was a lot.
A couple of interceptions. So once again, this is the Steelers team that runs through their defense. This defense is elite, and we saw that today where Big Ben did enough on the offensive side. James Conner looked really good running the ball today.
Excellent.
Which is good to see because he got injured in week 1, so it's good to see him back and healthy. But I mean, this is a Steelers team that their offense is going to do enough, and the defense is going to be their elite level defense.
I agree. I think that's enough said. Big Ben looked okay. He looks like a 38-year-old
But at the same time, it looks like the Broncos are building something decent. They were competitive against the Titans last week.
Titans. It does. You know what? It really doesn't help that Von Miller's out.
Oh, absolutely.
They definitely could have made this game a lot closer.
Yeah.
You know what? The score does not reflect the game.
No.
Because they definitely rallied back. They got a good team going in the next few years if Drew Lock's able to recover.
Well, that's the point. I think they were They're 0-2, but they were competitive against two playoff teams, playoff caliber teams.
Jaguars and Titans. Wow. Jaguars came close. Titans were running them. The final score is 33-30.
Yep, a late field goal to win it for the Titans.
So, he missed that field goal. You go into overtime. This game's a whole different game.
Well, and the other thing I'll mention is, speaking of Denver really building up to something, the Titans have narrowly beaten the Broncos and the Jaguars.
Well, they would have. Well, if Gostkowski was able to hit some shots, it wouldn't have been as close last week.
But also, if you were putting the ball in the end zone instead of relying on Gostkowski to kick field goals, if you're counting by 7 instead of 3. So I think that the Titans, it's interesting because, like I said, sometimes things go beyond record, right? Like the Broncos at 0-2, that's a promising 0-2 because you're building for the future. For the Titans, that's a concerning 2-0.
I agree. 100%.
It's a concerning 2-0. And the thing I'll say about the Jaguars is, first of all, week 1, Gardner Minshew was absolutely unstoppable.
Same thing today.
And he was good again today. He looks really good again today.
He looks like he could be a high-level caliber.
Who else did the Jaguars have? Nobody.
Because they got rid of Fournette.
They have nobody. And Minshew is still playing really well. I think and the thing is the Jaguars are going to tank and draft Trevor Lawrence. I don't know about that. Like, I think Gardner Minshew might be their quarterback.
I think he should be.
Like, he's played really well.
Even though they've lost with those, again, one of those, score does not reflect the game.
Well, and this is another thing where the Jaguars have nobody, so like they're
expect
tanking.
them to lose.
They're tanking.
You expect them to lose, but you don't expect them to lose this close.
They're 1-1, and Minshew is almost
2-0.
He's doing some Fitzmagic type of stuff down there
in
Duval County.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Packers double up on the Lions. Not a surprise there.
Aaron Rodgers has come to play this year.
He said
they drafted Jordan Love, and he said, "You want to replace me? I'm gonna go throw fucking touchdowns every Sunday and see about you guys wanting to replace me."
Yeah, see about replacing me. This is the second game in a row he's got 35 points plus.
Yeah. Oh, he's absolutely torching defenses. Like you said, granted the Lions aren't a great team,
right.
But he was torching them.
Yeah, he said, all right, I'm show you guys.
And the last thing I'll say about the Lions quickly, because I said last week, this Lions team, is a lot better than people give them credit for. They should have won last week. They dropped that touchdown pass in the end zone that would have won them the game. So they should be 1-1. And obviously the Packers, I think they're on another level where, you're not expecting to beat the Packers. So I'm disappointed that the Lions are 0-2. I liked what I saw from them in week 1, but they couldn't seal the deal with a win. And that's the difference between, a good team and a great team, or a mediocre team and a good team.
Changed my mind. Matthew Stafford is an elite quarterback on a sub-elite team.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Matthew Stafford is unbelievable.
Okay, Colts and Vikings. Colts bounce back and they destroy the Vikings 28-11. Man, Minnesota looked bad. What? Kirk Cousins looks terrible.
I was gonna say I was gonna see it do a change my mind thing, but you might have already beat me to it. Or I'm gonna say this wasn't the Colts winning. This was the Vikings losing.
They look terrible. Yeah. Oh man.
And the Vikings are 0-2. And the Colts, once again...
Do you think the Vikings make the playoffs?
I don't think so.
Well, I think maybe this year because of how there's 3 wildcard spots. But if it's a normal playoffs, I don't think
that's normal now. They've expanded to 3 wildcard teams.
Is it like forever?
Forever, yeah. I know we both kind of disagree with given that facial expression.
But whatever.
I don't know. I don't think Cousins is good enough. I think that you lost a star receiver.
In Diggs.
Yeah, which we'll get to. Lighting it up in Buffalo, which we'll get to.
We'll get to that game.
But... I mean, speaking of Minshew last week was 19 for 20 against the Colts defense.
Yeah, something like that.
And then you go to what Kirk Cousins was doing, and at one point, I think he was 6 of 19 with 3 interceptions.
Today, yeah. Oh, it was bad. It was 6 of 24 or something.
So maybe it got even worse. Yeah. And so I think I'm very concerned if I'm the Vikings. Also, though, the Colts losing to Jacksonville, that's a big red flag. And then...
Yeah, no kidding.
Phillip Rivers is going to continue to throw those stupid interceptions. And, I mean, this is, once again, I said it last week, I'll say it again. This is a Colts team that has a playoff caliber roster, but don't have a quarterback.
They did. And they ruined him.
And they ruined him, yeah.
Okay, Bills and Dolphins.
I'm going to let you talk up your Bills.
So, ladies and gentlemen, at my school, I'm in a pool, and I chose Buffalo to beat Miami this week, and my God, I was scared. Got off to an easy, it was a 14-0 lead. Going into the second quarter, it's like 17-3. We got this. Easy game. Yeah, it's like 20-17 at one point for the Dolphins. I'm like, crap. Bills are able to get it. They got 2 touchdowns in a row, and Miami
Josh Allen is a cannon.
Oh man, that last throw to I can't remember who it was to, threw a touchdown to Diggs, who we just touched on, is lighting it up.
Yeah, Josh 150 Allen, plus yards.
I think Josh Allen's biggest issue last year was he did not have that Diggs. He didn't have Diggs.
Yep.
He didn't have that guy.
He's got someone to throw to now.
He's got a weapon to throw to, and Diggs is ready. He is ready to take 40 throws a game.
Yeah, also Allen just absolutely shoving off a linebacker. Like, he stiff-armed the linebacker.
Oh, man, Allen looked so cool.
Which is funny because people are talking about how Lamar Jackson's a this Allen is built like a running back.
He's
obviously
big.
Lamar Jackson has shown in Baltimore that he can throw a football, and that's why, the Ravens are doing some really good things.
Yeah.
Allen, I think his decision-making is getting a little bit better. I think.
Yeah, he's not throwing those balls stupidly.
I think we both agree that, this Buffalo is going to go as far as Josh Allen is going to take them.
I think they're going to make the playoffs.
Absolutely.
You know what?
I think they'll win the division.
I think they'll win the division as well.
But I think that it's a good start for Buffalo. You're 2-0, and, I mean, granted, the Jets and Dolphins aren't tough opponents, but those are 2 sort of I'm not going to call them preseason games because I think that's a little
The
too
warm-ups.
disrespectful.
Warm-ups.
But
Let's have more warm-ups.
you don't have to play your best to win.
Yeah.
And now they are 2-0, and they can hopefully get those mistakes out of the way. I think the next month for Buffalo is going to be big.
Yeah, and I think if they beat a team like even San Fran, you could argue a team even like Baltimore. If Baltimore, when they play Baltimore,
well, they're eventually going to see the Patriots, and
think
that's going to be a big test.
I think they'll beat the Patriots.
That's going to be a big test.
I think Cam Newton's good, not good enough. But yeah, it's still scary today. Probably the best game I've seen in a very long time. I hate the Cowboys, but my God, they know how to rally.
Well, this is another example of the Atlanta Falcons. No matter how much talent they have, they just can't. They can't do it.
The Atlanta Falcons, ladies and gentlemen, were up 29.5.
Yeah.
29-0. Nothing.
Also, all they needed to do was prevent an onside kick from happening.
So, man, let's describe this picture. It's an onside kick. Kicker kicks it. They do not touch the ball at any point until the 10-yard line.
So the way the kick goes, obviously, for those of you who are not football fans, an onside kick, the ball needs to travel 10 yards before the offense can recover it, but the defense can pick it up whenever. And so the kicker, normally what they do is they try to, loft it up in the air so that the team can run and get there in time. What he does is he just decides to, pass it almost like a soccer ball.
And a smart play by him for doing that.
And trickle it along the field. And the Cowboys they run to the 10-yard marker and wait for the ball to come to them.
Because that's how long they have to wait.
They have to. The Falcons don't need to wait, but they, for some reason, are just sitting around like nothing's going on. And so the Falcons lose this game. Also, they got lit up by the Seahawks last week. Once again, a lot of people are saying, oh, this is a Falcons team that has talent. They can figure out. This was a Falcons team that had talent last year and went, 7-9 or something like that.
Stupid.
Missed the playoffs. This was a Falcons team that had talent and looked like they were finally going to convert. And I'm not, okay, I'll say 28-3. Sorry, Falcons fans, but, they just can't get it done. And this is another prime example of that. But question to you, if I'm the Cowboys, how concerned are you at 1-1 with the way that you just barely managed to squeak out a win?
I think you're concerned in the sense where, you're 1-1, and this is not the start you wanted. Prescott he's trying to make a name. He's trying to get that contract.
Absolutely.
And he's playing not great, but you're not concerned in the sense where you're resilient. This team is resilient. They're annoying. They will not go away. They're 29-0. And they lost with a clutch onside kick and a clutch field goal to win the game.
My point is, though, if you're relying on an onside kick to win every game.
Yeah, no, you should be concerned.
And if you're falling down by double digits week in and week out, right? But I'd also question Mike McCarthy's play calling because they fake punted twice, failed both times, and they were in their own, on their own side of the field.
Yeah, it was not good. Not good.
But I mean the last thing to mention is obviously the Giants are 0-2, the Eagles are 0-2, and then even though the Washington football team won, the Washington football team are not going to put up a lot of wins this year.
Perfect segue. Yeah. Halftime between the Cardinals and Washington at the time of recording at 5:37 p.m. Washington 0, Cardinals 20.
Yeah, I mean the Cardinals. This is going to be a big improvement season for them.
Man.
Kyler Murray is looking like Lamar Jackson Jr. right now.
Yeah, Ravens and Texans, second quarter, Ravens 20, Texans 7.
Yeah, once again, we talked about it in the season preview last week. The Texans are, they're good. They'll be a borderline playoff team, but, the decision-making of the management and the roster, and the Ravens are out for revenge after what happened last year in the playoffs.
Speaking of the Chiefs, which is actually... This one is actually shocking. Chargers and Chiefs. Second quarter, 2-minute mark. Chiefs 6, Chargers 14.
Yeah, still early.
Chiefs scored on two field goals, not a touchdown.
Still early.
It's a little concerning, but it again, like
concerning.
You said, a very good game actually. I think Patriots and Seahawks
tonight, which is going to be a good one, and then Monday Night Football tomorrow is Saints
and Raiders, baby,
the Vegas Raiders. But, I just want to say, if anyone was questioning my bold Super Bowl prediction, the Seahawks looked really good last week.
Oh, man.
Slapping around the Atlanta Falcons. It's going to be a big test tonight against the
not
Patriots.
Not as much as people might make it out to be.
Not as much as like the Patriots would have been a few years ago.
I think it will be a big test for the Patriots.
Yes, my point is this is a game that the Seahawks should win in prime time, and it'll be very. I have faith that they're going to be able to pull it out.
I think if you're the Patriots and you're Cam Newton, obviously last week putting a lot of his injury questions to.
Well, he looked good last week.
He looked excellent last week. Put him to rest. I think this is another big week, and you have two quarterbacks who have carried their teams last week. Russell Wilson threw for unbelievable numbers, and Cam Newton ran in a touchdown himself, and took some hits. Like that guy, like Megatron, looked like he's back. Obviously, he's not Megatron. It's that was Tatum, Golden Tate. That was years ago. No,
Calvin Johnson.
Johnson. Sorry, my apologies. This is going to be a big test for the Patriots, not only for Cam Newton, but as a team, for Belichick. I think Belichick, if they miss the playoffs this year, you can maybe give them a pass because of who they lost, in the sense of Brady, and then Gronk retired a few years ago. Edelman's never been kind of himself recently.
Well, he's getting up there in age.
Yeah, but as a playoff team, and they don't make it this year, I'd question it. And Belichick may be coming to the end.
Well, I mean, you're 1-0. So you don't have to.
Well, who they play? The Dolphins, right?
Yes, but you're 1-0, and the Seahawks are a really tough team. But so I think this is going to be a storyline that sort of develops further down the season, and that's why we're talking about. You can be 2-0 and have concerns. You can be 0-2 and things are still looking promising, and it's still going to take a little while to get a little bit of clarity in terms of where everything is going. Any final thoughts on the NFL up until about halfway through week 2?
Colorado in 5. I think everything is kind of planning out the way everyone kind of expected. Obviously, a few different question marks around certain teams. San Francisco losing basically half their offensive line. But other than that, everything's kind of quote-unquote going to plan.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And now just sort of other random thoughts about some other random sports and some other stuff that we'll be keeping an eye on in the coming weeks is obviously the NHL and NBA finish their seasons. Obviously, there'll be a decent amount to talk about off-season wise, especially as us being huge hockey guys.
This is going to be a very interesting free agency / off-season.
We'll bring you all those stories, but it also will allow us to sort of highlight some other leagues. Obviously, some NFL talk will pick up as the season goes on. Baseball.
Jays are looking questionable.
Hopefully, they can sneak into that playoff spot, but we'll get some more baseball talk as we get in towards the playoffs into October. Also, college football's come back.
Yeah.
The big conferences are starting to play next week. The
Big
SEC
10
is back.
Yep.
Big Ten said they're going to be returning in the coming weeks.
Pac-12?
Pac-12 is the one conference is not going to be playing.
Right? That's right.
And we've seen the Big 12 lose some big games. So, once again, this was maybe an opportunity for one of those teams to sort of step up. But we've seen basically Oklahoma is basically the only school in that conference that's putting themselves in playoff contention. It'll be interesting to see just quickly if any of the ACC schools can show that it's not just Clemson in that conference.
Yeah,
and there are a couple of teams, particularly Miami, are 2-0 to start the season, and Miami's a team that's struggled recently, and obviously there's a lot of questions about if they can keep that going. But if Miami can put up a 1 or 2 loss season, and one of those losses is Clemson, maybe does that push them into, conversation for the college football playoffs this year?
Yeah,
obviously, very early in the college football season, we'll be getting into that maybe a little bit more
in depth later on when the season picks up.
When the season really picks up, exactly. And I think that is basically going to wrap up
Any last thoughts?
Week's episode. Any last thoughts? No. I know the U.S. Open's going on. It looks like Bryson DeChambeau and Matthew Wolff are going down the stretch. So
they're going.
A pre-congratulations to whichever one of those two can, pull out the victory.
Big pot this year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like $20 million or something like that.
It's big prize every year. Golf's getting more up there.
I think I'd rather have like a car instead of $20 million.
Well,
a nice car.
And honestly, you know what? Might as well keep the obscure sports going for anyone out there who's a fan. Tennis. We got to congratulate. Oh, now I'm gonna blank on his name.
Shapovalov?
Well, no, we got to congratulate Shapovalov. A lot of Canadians doing very well in the U.S. Open.
They look good this year.
Congrats to Naomi Osaka for winning on the women's side, and Dominic Thiem for winning on the men's side. You see, I remember the name.
Yeah, you remember it. No,
the French Open starting up next week, which is going to be interesting to see if Nadal can win his 12th French Open. The guy doesn't lose on clay.
I don't think he's lost in that for years.
He's
now.
lost 2 games in the French Open his entire career. So yeah,
I think that's it.
It's gonna be cool. And then yeah, I could keep rattling off
We can keep
the obscure
going.
sports.
CPL, we can talk about that. Like
Yeah, I mean the Premier League started.
Premier League
We can
kicked
talk a little bit more about that.
Gareth Bale, we can talk about next week.
Yeah, Gareth Bale back at Spurs.
Oh yeah.
And so our point is, even when the NHL and NBA season wraps up, there will still be a lot of hockey and basketball talk, but we will cover all of those sports. So we want to thank you for listening. Feel free to drop a like or a 5-star review wherever you're listening. And also, if you want to leave us a review or let us know in the comments, what sports we should be talking more about. Because if you guys want us to talk about it, we will. And let us know if there are any specific teams or anything else that you want covered. But other than that, any last words?
See you next week. We'll talk more. There's going to be lots of stuff that's going to happen this week. So we hope to bring it to you next week.
Sounds great. Thanks again for listening, and we will see you next week.